Now, I realized that I promised in the last exercise that I was going to show you how to use the spiral tool. But first, we need room for our spirals, so I'm going to have to expand my artboard. And if you take a look at fuzzyguides.ai, which represents the last saved version of our final artwork, you can see that there is indeed quite a bit of room down here below the end of the final guideline. So we need to expand that artboard. And here's how we're going to do it. Go ahead and switch back to your art in progress. I've gone ahead and saved my progress as arrowandheart.ai, found inside the 04 line art folder. And I'm going to change the size of the artboard in a way we haven't seen yet. I'm going to switch over here to the artboards panel. That's pretty familiar, and of course you can get to it by going to the window menu and choosing artboards if you like. Then, with Artboard 1 selected, I'm going to go to the flyout menu icon, click on it, and choose Artboard Options. And that's going to switch me into the Artboard Edit view, as well as bring up this ginormous dialog box. And what's great about this is I can change quite a few settings at once inside of this dialog box. Now, this doesn't tend to be the way I work very often, but I want you to know this option is here. And because this illustration is a target, as if it's a dartboard, and it's also a heart, and we're working on an artboard, I'm going to call this guy Heartboard. I figure that makes sense. And then I'm going to change the height value to, let's try 600 points and see if that's big enough. And we should be expanding from the top down because this top left reference point is selected. I don't want constraint proportions turned on. So I'll press the tab key and notice that I can preview my changes. So I'll go ahead and click OK because this looks pretty good. And then I'll scroll downwards using the scroll wheel on my mouse. And you know what? I don't think I have quite enough room down there at the bottom. So I'm going to expand the artboard a little bit further in the traditional way. That is the way that I showed you back when we were looking at artboards in Chapter 2. I'm going to press Shift-O in order to switch to the artboard tool. And then I'll go up here to the control panel, make sure that same reference point is selected, which it is. And I'll change this height value to 620. Just to give myself a little additional wiggle room down there at the bottom, and that works out quite nicely. All right, now I'm done with this view. I'll press the Escape key to go back to the standard drawing mode, and I want to add one more guideline. Go figure that we need another guideline inside of this illustration. Switch to your Layers panel, and twirl open the guides, and twirl open the group as well. And you know what? We don't need this group. I'm going to go ahead and target the group by clicking on its meatball. There's no reason for all these guides to be grouped together. And I'm going to go up to the Object menu and choose Ungroup, or press Control-Shift-G or Command-Shift-G on the Mac. And now we have all of our objects still. They just don't happen to be grouped together, so that group item disappeared. And I'm not sure which of these horizontal guides I want, so I'll just meatball any one of them, such as this H right there, the bottom H right above H center. And that happens to be this top guy. Well, he'll work as well as any. Now, I'd like to duplicate him, but I think I still got my guides locked. So I'll go up to the View menu, choose Guides, and sure enough, Lock Guides is turned on, so I'll turn it off. And now I'll bring up my Transform panel, but hey, I'm not seeing my Transform panel. What gives? Well, sometimes the Transform panel does not appear, and in my case, I believe it's because I have my white arrow tool selected. If I press the V key to switch to my black arrow tool, no, the control panel doesn't offer Transform for me. So I could bring up the Transform panel by clicking on this little icon right there, or I could go to the Window menu and choose way down here at the bottom of the list, Transform, or I could press Shift F8 if you care to remember that keyboard shortcut. And that'll force the display of the Transform panel like so. But notice that you do have a Y value up there, and your Y value is the same as your Y value down here. And recall that when you're changing a horizontal guide, it's the Y value that counts. So you know what? Why don't we just try it up here in the control panel? Why don't we change this value to 590? Which is going to create a guideline down here someplace. And of course, I'd like to duplicate this guideline. That's not absolutely essential because we're pretty much done using this guide, but why throw it away? So I'm going to press Alt-Enter or Option-Return in order to duplicate that guide, and that worked out beautifully. Notice that. So we don't necessarily need the Transform panel. Sometimes options are represented in different ways inside of the control panel, and basically the control panel's entire purpose in life is to react intelligently to whatever it is you're doing. Sometimes it gets it right, sometimes not. Anyway, at this point, I'm going to go back to the View menu. I'm going to choose Guides, and I'm going to choose Lock Guides once again to lock down all of the guides inside the illustration. Let's scroll up the Layers panel, go ahead and twirl Close Guides, switch back to the Drawing panel, and now we are set to begin drawing spirals in the next exercise.